Long ago, the world was locked in ice. Massive glaciers crawled across continents, sea levels dropped, and a land bridge rose from the depths of the ocean, connecting Siberia to Alaska. Across that frozen expanse trudged bands of hunter-gatherers following herds of mammoth and bison, completely unaware that their journey would one day lead to the rise of gods, pyramids, and chocolate. They weren't explorers in the modern sense. They were just hungry people chasing dinner. Yet their footsteps on that icy ground would echo through millennia, because those wanderers were about to populate an entire hemisphere. Some walked. Others might have hugged the Pacific coast in small boats, paddling past glaciers and thinking, "This is either the best idea ever or the last thing we'll ever do." Thousands of years later, their descendants would be farming in tropical jungles, building cities, and carving giant stone heads that look suspiciously like grumpy football coaches. For now, though, they were nomads. They hunted, gathered, and moved with the seasons. But something in them was changing. They were paying attention. They started to notice that when they tossed leftover seeds near camp, food seemed to grow there. Slowly, trial by trial, mistake by mistake, they learned to bend nature just enough to make life easier. In central Mexico, near the Balsas River, someone discovered a grass that would change everything. It was scrawny and tough, barely food at all. But humans are nothing if not persistent. Generation after generation, they tinkered with it, until that wild grass became maize, corn. The first domesticated supercrop of the Americas. Small ears turned into fat, juicy cobs. And once you have corn, you're not chasing mammoths anymore. You're hosting the first neighborhood potluck. Corn didn't come alone. Beans and squash joined the party, forming the three sisters of ancient agriculture. Together they were a nutritional dream team. Beans gave nitrogen to the soil, corn gave structure, and squash shaded the ground. Humanity had just unlocked the first cheat code for civilization, a stable food supply. Once people had food, they stopped moving. Villages appeared, homes were built, granaries filled up. And then something dangerous happened: free time. With free time came curiosity. With curiosity came organization. Someone decided to count how much corn was stored. Someone else decided they were in charge of the counting. Suddenly there were leaders, priests, and workers. Hierarchy was born, and with it came ceremony, trade, and the first sparks of culture. Trade routes spread across what we now call Mesoamerica. Jade from the mountains, obsidian from volcanoes, shells from the sea, all moving through networks of barter and ritual. Villages grew into communities, communities into chiefdoms. People built shrines, held festivals, told stories about gods who ruled the rain and the sun. The gears of civilization began to turn. Then, around 1500 BCE, in the steamy lowlands along Mexico's Gulf Coast, something extraordinary emerged. Out of the forests and swamps came the Olmec, the first great civilization of Mesoamerica. Before the Maya built temples or the Aztecs ruled empires, the Olmec were already building cities and carving monuments that defied belief. Their first great center was San Lorenzo, a city of earthen platforms, plazas, and drainage systems so advanced they'd make a modern engineer nod in approval. But what really grabbed everyone's attention were the heads. Colossal stone heads, each weighing up to 20 tons, carved from basalt and transported for miles without wheels or animals. Every head had a unique face, likely a ruler immortalized in stone. The Olmecs invented the first portrait gallery. Only their portraits required a small army to move. They farmed the fertile floodplains, fished the rivers, and controlled trade networks that stretched across hundreds of miles. They built mounds that might have served as temples or palaces. They played a ritual ball game that would later be adopted by every major Mesoamerican culture. And they worshipped gods with jaguar faces and serpent bodies, symbols of power, fertility, and mystery. The jaguar was especially important. It prowled through their myths as the ultimate symbol of the divine. The Olmecs saw strength in merging human and animal, earth and spirit. Their art was filled with hybrid beings, half man, half beast, hinting at a belief system where the boundary between worlds was always shifting. Their ideas traveled far. Jade figurines, obsidian blades, and ceremonial motifs show up in distant regions, proof of influence that stretched beyond their homeland. And their inventions, a writing system, a calendar, a ball game, became the blueprint for every major civilization that followed. The Olmecs didn't just plant crops, they planted ideas. They turned maize into surplus, surplus into structure, and structure into society. They were the first to look at the wilderness and think, we can organize this. And they did. They turned mud and stone into meaning. But no civilization lasts forever. Around 900 BCE, San Lorenzo declined. Monuments were smashed. The city emptied. Whether it was war, rebellion, or the environment turning against them, no one knows. Yet even as one city fell, another rose. La Venta. It became the new center of Olmec power, a city of pyramids and ritual plazas. At La Venta, priests oversaw ceremonies that honored gods and ancestors. Offerings of jade and serpentine were buried in precise arrangements, as if mapping out the cosmos. Art grew more sophisticated, religion more complex, and society more stratified. The Olmec were not just farmers anymore. They were philosophers of the sacred. Then, suddenly, around 400 BCE, they were gone. Their cities abandoned, monuments defaced, people scattered. Maybe floods swept the region. Maybe soil exhaustion or social collapse drove them away. But while the Olmecs disappeared, their legacy didn't. The cultures that followed, Zapotec, Maya, Aztec, all carried pieces of them forward. The Maya would refine their calendar, build towering temples, and inscribe their history in glyphs. The Aztecs would inherit their gods, their ball games, their fascination with sacrifice and cosmic balance. Even the everyday staples of life, maize, beans, chocolate, carried Olmec DNA. It's strange to think that it all began with people who walked across ice, chasing animals. From the cold tundra to the tropical lowlands, humanity's greatest transformation wasn't just about geography. It was about imagination. We went from surviving to creating, from wandering to building, from hoping for food to shaping the world. When you stand in a cornfield today and watch the wind move through the stalks, you're seeing the same miracle that gave rise to cities, art, and myth. A simple plant, shaped by human hands, reshaping humanity in return. The Olmec showed what happens when humans look at chaos and decide to design it. They were the architects of a pattern that every civilization would follow: food, surplus, trade, hierarchy, culture, collapse, and legacy. The cycle began there, in the humid jungles of ancient Mexico, where people first turned seeds into civilization. From frozen footsteps to colossal heads, from wild grass to golden corn, from hunter to builder, the story of ancient Mesoamerica is really the story of us, relentless, curious, and never satisfied with just surviving. So the next time you eat corn on the cob, remember that humble food is the descendant of the first great idea, the idea that we could change the world by planting it.